astounding progress recovering from cancer using hydrazine sulfate. So, Kathy, you're informed that you have 3 to 6 weeks to live. There's a tumor encompassing your aorta, and your doctor wants to put you on massive chemo, which you reject out of hand. Then you tell him you want the hydrazine sulfate, and what does he say to you?
Threw up his hands in the air and said, Kathy, I'm telling you, without treatment, meaning chemotherapy, you'll be dead in 6 weeks.
And with the treatment?
He didn't know.
Didn't know.
You know, it was a maybe.
With the treatment, maybe dead in 2 weeks.
Maybe I would survive. I don't know. Maybe, you know, it's an iffy thing.
When did you take, how long after that meeting with the doctor did it take for you to take the first pill?
Well, what happened was that night they put me in the hospital and they did a biopsy to confirm the diagnosis. They didn't know what, they knew I had cancer. They didn't know what kind of cancer I had at that point. They didn't know it was breast cancer. Because, of course, I'd had a mammogram and there's nothing showing on it. So they did a biopsy and they confirmed it was breast cancer. And then it took about a week, and then I went on hydrazine. I couldn't go on it to start with because I'd had too many incompatibles, you know, medications that don't go with hydrazine. And foodstuffs that don't go with hydrazine. So it took about a week, and then I went, and for the first 10 weeks, that's all I took. I took nothing else. And during that time, the hydrazine reduced the tumor significantly around all over my body. The one around my aorta virtually disappeared.
Where did they take the biopsy? Was it in the breast?
They took a biopsy under my arm in the lymph node. My whole lymph, my lymph nodes were infected too.
Well, it usually travels there if it's breast cancer.
Yes, they took it out from under my right arm.
Did they ever locate the tumor in your breast?
No.
They did not?
They still haven't located it. There isn't anything there now. Anyway, all I have left after all of this invasion, I've got 3 microscopic tumors in my liver.
So are they still certain? It's very odd that they wouldn't be able to locate the original tumor site.
Apparently, unless it has calcium in it, it doesn't really show up too well, the mammogram. This is what I've found out now, later.
I see. Now, and it was how long before you began to see results?
Well, the first 10 weeks, there was significant improvement within 10 weeks of starting being diagnosed and taking the hydrazine. Then, unfortunately, there was one of the tumors was, it was in a very bad place in my liver, and it was beginning to block up the tube that runs from the liver to the stomach.
Right.
So they had to put a stent in. And Joe Gold felt at that time it would be advisable for me to have radiation.
Who is this man?
Because radiation and hydrazine...
Who is Joe Gold?
He's the doctor I got the hydrazine from. He's controlled my case from the beginning. He's the doctor who's worked with all the other doctors who've treated me, and there have been a whole team of them.
Is he an oncologist?
Yes, and he's a scientist, actually. He runs the Syracuse Cancer Center.
That's right, and yet I saw a quote from him. I believe it was from Joe Gold, up at Syracuse. And he still was cautious about attributing your recovery, as I recall, exclusively to the hydrazine.
Well, Joe's a scientist, and, they couch everything in kind of fake terms. I know it's hydrazine. I took nothing else.
You've had no other treatment?
I had radiation for this one on my liver.
Right.
Now, instead of believing Joe and recognizing that if you're having hydrazine, you don't need that much radiation, you just need a mild little zap, Mount Sinai, in their infinite wisdom, said, we got her now. She's accepted one kind of therapy. So they really radiated me. They radiated the hell out of me.
Well, how do you stand today? What's your condition today?
My condition is wonderful today. After 6 months after the radiation, I'm over it. But the radiation, I have to tell you, was worse than the cancer ever was.
Is that right?
Oh, that was really cruel.
Are you free of cancer today?
No, I'm not totally free of cancer. My cancer is stabilized. There are small tumors in my liver which don't bother me. And I've just had another bone scan, and most of them have disappeared. I can't find them, but I have one maybe on my pelvis.
But there are metastatic tumors have disappeared from your body, and the others
my abdomen is clear, and my lymph system is gone. I mean, it's clear, clean.
And so you're living your life more or less the way you did before you were afflicted?
Yeah, pretty much, sure.
Well, what do doctors say?
They say it's a miracle cure, Kathy. Nobody recovers from stage 4 breast cancer.
I know that. Why aren't doctors prescribing this all over the place? Why are they still skeptical?
Because nobody has done double-blind trials on it yet.
So why don't they?
It's a good question. Let's ask the National Cancer Institute. Well, they did one lot of trials, which they messed up.
Well, are there plans, after your success, have there been any initiatives to conduct double-blind trials?
Not yet, but what I plan to do is to make such a noise that somebody's going to have to do the tests.
All right.
Because what I want to accomplish is to raise public consciousness and to have people demand, call their senator, call their congressman, and demand that this drug is retested properly under proper conditions where it's not deliberately, sabotaged.
Are you cynical to the point where you believe in your heart, Kathy, that the medical establishment, the political establishment, are suppressing the efficacy of hydrazine sulfate therapy in order to preserve their lucre, their bounty?
Without question of doubt.
Really?
I mean, this is the sole treatment and the treatment of choice in Russia. There's nothing wrong with Russian science. There may be a lot wrong with the country, but their science is pretty good.
Well, what happens? Do they use this as a treatment?
They use it for all kinds of cancer.
In Russia?
In Russia, yeah.
Well, but there must be people dying of cancer today in Russia.
Not as many as die in the U.S.
I think we'd hear about it.
Not as many as die here. And unfortunately, there are some people who cannot take hydrazine. They cannot digest it in their GI tract. It just passes straight through them. And those are the people that can't be helped.
All right.
But, if this drug was studied properly, other forms of it would be developed, forms that could be taken intravenously.
You mean some people do not absorb it into their system?
Some people, for some reason, cannot absorb it in their GI tract. That's their stomach.
Can you inject it then? In those people?
Nobody has done the trials for that.
All right.
That's what needs to be done, amongst other things.
What's the percentage of people who cannot absorb it through the GI tract?
It's probably maybe 20%.
All right.
But I don't have the figures on that. But Joe has, with people who are really, really sick and have been given up by their doctors, as hopeless, Joe's got something like an 80% success rate using hydrazine sulfate.
And he's up in Syracuse.
Yes. For lung cancer, for example, it has a tremendous success rate. Prostate cancer can be cured in its early stages entirely just with a pill.
What hospital does Joe go?
He doesn't have a hospital. He's got his own private research facility called the Syracuse Cancer Research Facility.
Syracuse Cancer Research Facility. So if people were to write to him, they could write to him at the Syracuse...
The doctors need to write to him.
Syracuse...
Joe cannot deal with the general public. He can't prescribe over the phone or, diagnose people on the phone. You have to get your doctor to call him.
Well, what about if people want to see him?
You've got to do it through your doctor.
All right. I have people who want to speak to you. Janine is in Spring Lake. Hello, Janine. You're speaking to Kathy Keeton. Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Janine.
So this treatment works on all forms of cancer?
It works on all forms of cancer.
And
it's just a pill, Janine. It's a pill you take in the morning and the evening.
What are the side effects, though?
It constipates you.
That's the only side effect?
Only side effect. Oh, it has a wonderful other side effect. It made my hair grow like you would not believe.
Oh, well, that's a good side effect.
Yes.
And the only way to obtain it is through your doctor writing to this other doctor.
Well, you can obtain it directly from Great Lakes Metabolics and other chemical companies, but I don't advise you to do this drug or any other drug without a doctor's supervision. And there are doctors who do regularly use it and talk to Joe and are familiar with it.
And if somebody has been on chemo or radiation...
It doesn't matter if you've been on it. It will still help you.
It will?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janine.
Thank you.
How many pills a day do you take, Kathy?
I take 2.
2 pills?
Some people take 3. Some people take 1.
All right,
It depends on what their tolerance for the drug is. My tolerance didn't extend past 2, but it worked for me, right where it was.
All right, stay with me, Kathy Keeton. We'll return on the Barry Gray Show with Jay Diamond on Radio 710 with Kathy Keeton. And Kathy, you attribute your recovery from advanced breast cancer to the use of hydrazine sulfate.
Absolutely.
And John is in Staten Island. Hello, John.
Hello, Mr. Diamond.
Hi.
Kathy Keeton, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
I just want to tell everybody that what this woman is saying is 100% correct. About 15, 20 years ago, Tom Snyder was interviewing Dr. Gold from Syracuse University about this stuff, and he had a patient on there with him whose cancer was in submission and on its way to being cured. And the patient and the doctor were both talking about the American Cancer Society, how they, have poo-hooed it and suppressed it and everything because there's no big bucks in it for them. And everything she's saying is true. This woman is like close to sainthood because she's bringing it out in the open finally.
No, but I have a question. Here's why I'm skeptical. If there is such a thing as a cure for cancer, what are the odds that this could be kept a secret for even 1 minute?
Well, it's been kept it's been a very well kept secret for the past 15 years.
You mean it's possible that there is a cure for cancer and that...
There is absolutely a cure for cancer. I am a living proof of it. Not only I, but several of my friends over the years that we've given this drug to.
You have
Who's
given
still
it...
walking around.
You have seen this drug...
I've seen it work on a number of people. A girlfriend of mine who had cancer of the bone and lung cancer 7-8 years ago, she's a South African. We got the drug for her to South Africa. Her doctors cooperated with Joe and they treated her with it. She has 3 healthy children today. This is a woman who was given 6 weeks to live, who'd had chemotherapy, they'd given up for dead, whose leg had been in a cast for 4 years.
Well, then why wasn't it publicized when she was cured?
It was, but not in this country, in South Africa.
Well, why here?
Because at that time, South Africa and everything to do with South Africa was anathema to the American press, and they wouldn't publish anything about it.
Did you try?
We tried very hard.
But don't you have a magazine?
We have run stories 3 or 4 times a year in Penthouse. Let me point out to you part of what the problem is.
Uh-huh.
A newspaper reporter picks up Penthouse and reads the story and says, his editor says, that's interesting, and he calls his science editor and says, go check out this. The science editor calls the National Cancer Institute, and the National Cancer Institute says it's rubbish.
And they leave it at that?
And they leave it at that.
All right.
This has gone round in a vicious circle.
Right.
We finally have gotten an investigation started by the GOA into the National Cancer Society's
Kathy?
antics with this drug.
Question I have for you, and I understand you're not a scientist, nor am I, but nonetheless, maybe we can understand it. Do you have any idea, any understanding of the biochemical process by which this drug cures cancer?
Yes.
What does it do?
People primarily die from the wasting disease. They fast away. I mean, they don't eat, and their bodies are incapable of digesting food, and they fade away from starvation. Hydrazine sulphate interferes with that. It interferes with what's called cachexia.
Right.
And it reinstates the body's ability to digest the food for itself and prevents the cancer from getting it.
Oh, so
the person's own immune system picks up.
Well, I can understand perhaps it could enhance your appetite, but cancer, in addition to cachexia, it also physically destroys tissue.
It also attacks the tumors.
It does attack the tumors,
yes.
But you don't know quite how?
No, I don't know quite how, but the most powerful force we have for curing ourselves is our own body. And what this drug does is reactivate your body so it can cope.
All right, let's say hi to Ben in Manhattan. Hello, Ben.
Hi.
Yes, hi. I had experience with someone who had malignant melanoma, and she didn't know that she had it, but she had changed her diet about 6 months after she got it. And became a vegetarian, got very much into nutrition, took a lot of vitamin C and nutritional supplements. About 5 years later, she finally went and had it diagnosed, and the diagnosis said that it was malignant melanoma. But it had not metastasized, it stayed local. The doctor would not believe at all that she had it 5 years before. I don't know if you're familiar with malignant melanoma.
Yeah, it kills very quickly.
Yes. Pretty much everyone in the conventional medical field that we have told about this just it looks at us like we don't know what we're talking about, and that couldn't have happened. So I can see, I've seen firsthand how, conventional medicine will just completely dismiss you as not knowing what you're talking about very easily. And I can see why, that these alternative therapies just don't catch on.
Well,
Doctors are incredibly arrogant.
Well, they might be arrogant, but then I have an open mind, but I have to confess why I'm skeptical, because it seems to me that far from there being a shortage of cures for cancer, there seem to be an abundance of them. Dr. Brzezinski says that antineoplastin cures cancer. You say that hydrazine sulfate...
Well, he has a lot of success with it. And he's been hounded and persecuted,
Right,
along with every other practitioner who offers a reasonably priced cure for cancer.
So, but isn't it a little bit peculiar? Isn't it a little bit
No, it's
perhaps
not peculiar.
louche
When you think
that
of
there
how
are
much-
more than one cure? Now there's more than one cure for cancer.
There may be 50,000 cures, but I know that one of them works and it has no side effects and it's
No,
cheap.
no, I understand, but the medical establishment's power must be manifold, must be abundant, because they claim there's no cure for cancer when we're hearing from many different circles that there's not just a cure for cancer, but there's a few.
But the medical profession only believes the double-blind tests that they've been brought up to believe. The villain is the National Cancer Institute.
Okay.
It's collecting the billions of dollars every year with great regularity, and cancer today is worse than when they started.
That is indisputable. Hold on, Kathy. We'll come back on Radio 710 WOR. This is Jay Diamond. From metastasized stage 4 breast cancer using hydrazine sulfate, and I think a lot of people are deriving some hope from hearing you tonight. Kathy, one thing...
I hope so, because this is what I plan to do with the rest of my life.
One thing isn't in dispute. The chemotherapy is poison. I
Yes.
have seen people on chemo, and I've seen them die from the chemo. You are quite
Yes.
right. And if this miracle is really effective, it would be a great, great boon to
I can
the whole
promise
world.
you it is 100% effective.
All right. Susan is in Brooklyn talking to Kathy Keeton. Hello, Susan.
Hi, Susan.
Yes, good evening. I'm so glad someone with your courage is going through this. This is really wonderful, and you're helping so many people by bringing the truth out. I wanted to ask you what type of breast cancer screening that you believe in at this point for yourself, given your bad experience with mammography.
I don't know. I honestly don't know, and I think it's a really serious problem. I do not think that mammography is adequate, nor do I think that women start checking or getting checkups early enough. I think, checkups now, doctors say they should be done in your 40s and 50s, but I think it should be in your 20s and 30s.
Right, and in fairness to the concept of mammography, you are a medical anomaly in that respect, that your cancer didn't show up on
No,
that.
apparently I'm not that
Really?
uncommon. Apparently certain cancers do not have, the tumors don't have any calcium in them, and when they don't have calcium, they do not show in the mammogram.
So calcium is the tag.
Yes.
So
it's the
absent
tag.
calcium in the tumor, that tumor is not
You could
likely
well,
to show itself.
your doctor could well miss it.
Well, that's astonishing. Kathy, I really am grateful that you've taken the time. I wish I could continue longer, but we have another guest booked for 8 o'clock, but please promise me that you'll
Well, if
return
anytime
very
you would
soon.
like me back, if there's a lot of interest, I would be happy to come back and answer questions.
It'll be my privilege, and I really am encouraged by your story of triumph over cancer.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I wish you the best, and hopefully I will speak in the next couple of weeks again on the radio.
I hope so.
Good luck, Kathy.
Thank you very
nice
much.
Nice talking to you, and thank you.